If you will with me, just imagine that that baby is lying in a manger and these animals are all around it and it smells bad. I mean, it's bad.
How dare you?
Oh my goodness. And the animals are causing all sorts of a ruckus maybe, and Mary's tired and Joseph is tired and there are strangers there and it's become a little bit weird, right? Well, this particular baby, of course, we know better. This baby grows up to be Jesus that we know that walks and talks on the earth. We know that this particular baby will grow up to teach us things. And Jesus has many names, one of which is teacher. Jesus has parables and stories, and he speaks a lot. He's got a lot of things to teach us, and we can learn a lot. And we spend most of the year thinking about that. But then we also know Jesus as healer. We have a Jesus who is not afraid to touch the poorest, the dirtiest, the sickest among us. Because Jesus is a healer. And this tiny little baby's little tiny hands and fingers, whose mother, undoubtedly she counted every finger and toe, as all mothers do, are going to grow up to heal a very sin-sick world. We might also think about Jesus as a preacher, if you will. I often wonder how he was able to project to 5,000 people at a time. I've yet to find the answer to that question. But he had a lot of words that we learn to live by, and we read those in the gospel accounts over and over. Words of preaching to inspire the heart, to inspire us to live better. And I encourage you to keep studying those words as we move from 2025 into 2026. So we have a teacher, a healer, a preacher. We might also have other names, a good shepherd, like is pictured in our stained glass, someone who comforts us, who takes care of us. If you imagine that little baby in the manger is going to grow up and be all of these things, it becomes quickly overwhelming. If you've been here with us the last 3 weeks, you know that we've been discussing the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And if you're young and you haven't seen it, it's in black and white, and I apologize, and you should try and watch it. But if you're old and you remember that this movie is wonderful, it's got the story of a man who lives his whole life in a small town, and he basically thinks his life is worthless. At the end of the movie, he's thinking to himself, my life insurance policy is worth more than who I am. Doesn't sound very Christmassy, does it? No. But a certain angel comes to him, a man named Clarence. In fact, his name is Clarence Oddbody. And Clarence Oddbody is a ridiculous angel. When George Bailey first meets him, he says, you're just the kind of angel I would get. Great. Clarence has a trench coat and scruffy hair. He carries around a copy of Tom Sawyer, so he might be from Missouri, I don't know. And he tries to help George. And what he tells George is, no, your life is really important. It mattered. And George doesn't believe him. And so he grants a wish to George that he would see the world without him in it. And as you know, if you've seen this movie, that world is terrible. Because it turns out that all of the things that George has done have mattered on a huge scale, even though he only lived in a town the size of Avoz, even though he never left to travel, even though he never made millions of dollars. And then we think about those angels with the shepherds in the field. They made a majestic appearance, and the shepherds were terrified, of course, but they were amazing, and they called people to come to Jesus. But sometimes our better angels are like Clarence. They're not amazing, well-lit objects in a field. They're the people sitting next to you in the pews today who call you back to relationship with Jesus. Because even when Jesus is in a manger, Jesus wants you to be drawn close. So at this Christmas time, as we approach Christmas Day, and I'm sure you all have lists, I do too, to get done before we get there, I encourage you to maybe put the lists aside and think to yourself, that sweet little baby Jesus did not come to earth so that I could do a lot of baking. And he probably didn't come to earth so that I could make sure everybody on my list had an equal amount of money spent on them on a gift under the tree. But what Jesus did come to earth for was to be in relationship with you and with me. What he did come to earth for was to say, I love you so much. so much that I want to see you and hear from you every single day. And the Christ child comes every year at this time. But as we look towards the manger, further beyond that is the cross. And we know as Christians that this is just a moment of joy, but what comes next is a road of sorrow. As we move towards a broken, terrible world that Jesus comes to redeem. And so we come to this time of joy, and we remember that this baby born in Bethlehem will save us all. We remember that even though it was a weird birth story, even though he was born in a manger, even though there were smelly shepherds that came to visit and wise kings, and there were an awful lot of sweet animals around him, then he grew up. And that's really the important part of the story. Because after he was born, after the shepherds went back and the kings went back and the animals went off to do their work, Mary and Joseph raised a child. And the child grew in wisdom and stature and strength and became Jesus, who is our Messiah, the anointed one of God, come to save us all. So this Christmas, maybe spend a few extra minutes thinking about that baby and about how life-transforming that singular birth was on Christmas to save us all. Joy to the world, for the Lord is come. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. If you would like